بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم. Today we are going to deal with the nervous system, one of the regulatory system within our body. Actually, we have two regulatory systems, nervous system and endocrine system, and both of them regulate our body system. Starting by the learning objectives, as usual, we have here number one, we have 7 learning outcomes. Number 1, to recognize the classification of nervous system. Number 2, to differentiate between somatic and autonomic response. 3, explains the relation between central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Number 4, to memorize the structure of nerve cells and processes. And number 5, recall the types and functions of neuroglia cells. Number 6, to recognize the functions of cerebral hemisphere. And finally, number 7, to describe the functions of brainstem and cerebellum. So we have 7 learning objectives. I will move to the contents. Structural classification of nervous system هنبدأ بيه. Histological structure of the nervous system is the second content. And then we will move to the reflexes and what is the importance and definition of the reflexes. And we will finalize by the structure of the brain, and we'll know that the brain is formed of cerebral hemisphere, cerebellum, and brain stem, and the function for each one. This lecture will be conducted as flipped classroom. So we will have different activities and try to interact during your listening of this lecture. Okay. Number 1, or activity number 1, classify nervous system. Classify nervous system. The nervous system is divided into central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is formed of brain and spinal cord, while the peripheral nervous system is divided into autonomic nervous system and somatic nervous system. Okay. Starting by the central nervous system. Central nervous system is composed of brain and spinal cord. As you see here in the diagram, this is the brain and this is the spinal cord. From the brain and spinal cord arrive the peripheral nerves. We have spinal nerves and cranial nerves. So the central nervous system is formed of brain and spinal cord. The brain contains 100 billion nerve cells. 100 billion means 100 million nerve cells. Peripheral nervous system is formed of peripheral nerves that connect the central nervous system to the rest of the body. Connect to the muscles, to the glands, to blood vessels, and so on. We have 31 pairs of spinal nerves and 12 pairs of cranial nerves. And this is very, very important point. This is a hot spot present in the lecture, the numbers of spinal and cranial nerves. Take care of them. Okay. Activity number 2, summarize the 2 functional divisions of the peripheral nervous system, which are motor and sensory division of the peripheral nervous system. Actually, the peripheral nervous system is classified into 2 divisions, motor and sensory. As I mentioned just before, is the peripheral nervous system is the systems that connect the central nervous system to the rest of the body. We further subdivide this peripheral nervous system into 2 categories. The motor category or motor division, we call it efferent. Here, I will find the nerve fibers that carry impulses away from the central nervous system to reach the muscles and the gland. While sensory input or sensory division is called afferent. These fibers carry information from the periphery, from the body, from the receptors, as you want to say. to the central nervous system. Okay, motor division is divided into somatic and autonomic. Somatic nervous system controls the voluntary movement of the skeletal muscles. Autonomic nervous system control the involuntary. Involuntary. What is meaning of involuntary and where I found the involuntary action? Involuntary actions include the parasympathetic and sympathetic. Autonomic divided into parasympathetic and sympathetic. Parasympathetic decrease the heart rate, control the internal organs during normal activity or sleep. Sympathetic nervous system increase the heart rate and control internal activity during high stress activity like fight, flight, running, and so on. So we have two subdivisions for the motor division of the peripheral nervous system. We have the somatic and autonomic. Okay. Then I will move to this important diagram. This summarizes what we have got today. We have got in the previous part. We have central nervous system formed of brain and spinal cord divided into and peripheral nervous system divided into motor division and sensory division. The motor division further subdivided into somatic that supplies skeletal muscle and autonomic that divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic. Okay. Second content here is the histological structure of the nervous system. We have here the third activity, describes the principal cells forming the nervous tissue. The cells forming the nervous tissue running or falling in two categories. We have neurons or the nerve cells and supporting cells, we call it neuroglial cells. The neuron, it is the structural and functional unit of the nervous tissue. It is formed of cell body, dendrites, axon, and myelin sheaths. This is the components of the neuron. If you look at this diagram, you will find the cell body, dendrites, axon, and myelin sheaths. We have finally the axon terminal. Starting by the cell body is it contains a nucleus and surrounded by cytoplasm. Moving to the dendrites is characterized by transmitting the impulses from periphery to the cell body, transmitting impulses toward the cell body. The axon is a single fiber, while the dendrites is multiple, while the axon is single fiber, which transmit impulses away from the cell body, and the neurons generally have only one axon. Myelin sheaths, as you see here in blue color or pale blue color here, made up of white fatty substance separated by gaps called nodes of Ranvier, The functions of myelin sheaths are protect the axon from pressure and help speed up nerve conduction. This is the function of myelin sheaths, protect the axon from pressure and help speed up the conduction of the nerve. Take care that the myelin sheath is made up of fatty substance and separated by axon terminals. You see here the axon terminal expanded pass the axon impulses to the dendrites of the next neuron. So the impulse pass from the cell body to axon terminals, and from axon terminals, the impulse transmitted to the next neuron, the new neuron cell. Compare between the axon and dendrites. This is the fourth activity. Here you will find the axon and dendrites. The axon single, thin, constant diameter, only one, and the functions of the axon transmit impulses away from the cell body towards the nerve axon terminals and then to the next neuron. Dendrites are multiple, number, thick, irregular, decreases gradually, decreases gradually. Extensive branching, the branching or the branches, extensive branching, multiple branches, not single, and conduct impulse towards the cell body. Okay. Activity number 4. In this activity, we classify the neurons. Don't forget that we classify the nervous system into central nervous system and excellent peripheral nervous system. And we further subdivide the peripheral nervous system into sensory and motor. And then we divide the motor into autonomic and somatic. Here we will classify the neurons. The neurons. We have 3 types of neurons: sensory neurons, motor neurons, and the neurons that connect between both of them. We call it interneurons. We call it interneuron. Functional classification of neurons. There are 3 types of neurons. We have the sensory neuron, motor neuron, and interneurons. Sensory neurons, afferent neuron, carry information from sensory receptors to the central nervous system. Carry the information from the sensory receptors to the central nervous system. This is the afferent neuron. While motor neuron, efferent neuron, we call it efferent, carry impulses away from the central nervous system to the muscles and glands. Don't forget that we classify the motor division of the peripheral nervous system into somatic and autonomic. Okay. Finally, interneurons or association neurons that completely contained within the central nervous system, and these neurons interpret and transmit messages between motor and sensory neurons. I think we need a diagram to understand this data. We have here the sensory in blue color, carry impulses from the body to the central nervous system. And then I have in red the efferent or motor neurons that carry impulses toward the muscles and glands. And look at the 3rd type of neurons within the central nervous system in green color here. I call it interneurons, or sometimes the textbooks prefer association neuron, okay? Define the neuroglia cells and mention 2 examples. The neuroglia cells is a special connecting, supporting cells that surround the neurons. Look at this. This is a neuron, and the cells surrounding the neuron appear small and close relation with the neuron. I can express it in Arabic if you want, like the العروسة والوصفات اللي بيخدموا عليها. I have here الخلية nerve cell واللي بيخدم على nerve cells, which is the neuroglia cells. So we have the nerve cells and neuroglia cells. Schwann cells, one example of neuroglia cells. We have many examples. We have actually 5 types of neuroglia cells. Here I mentioned 2 types only. Schwann cells synthesize the myelin sheath around the nerve axons, and astrocytes that support and protect the nerve cell body. Here in the diagram, we found the astrocyte. This is the astrocyte. Okay. What are the reflexes? What are the reflexes? And we have here activity called define the reflex and describe the 5 components of the reflex. What are the reflexes? To understand the reflex, you have to imagine that you are about to, or you already touched fire or touched the stove. And then when you touch the flame of the stove, you withdraw your hand rapidly. What happened in this situation? Did you have to say, wow, it is hot, I need to remove my hand? No, no. What happened here? Imagine and think what happened in this situation. Actually, you moved your hand immediately. Why? Why you moved your hand immediately without thinking? Subconsciously. Subconsciously. Huh? Yeah, exactly as you said, because you protect your hand from the fire. You protect your hand from the fire. And this is called reflex. So it is clear how we can define the reflex. Reflex is involuntary movement of any organ or any part of the body that has received the stimulus, and it happens without consciousness and immediately. Why? Why? To protect this part or to protect the body from harm. Again, involuntary movement of any part of the body that receives stimulus without any consciousness and immediately to protect the body from harm. And this is very important definition. How did the reflex happen and after you touch the stove? We have 5 components for the reflex. Don't forget them. Actually, the reflex is very, very important. It formulates the function of the nervous system. So it is very, very important. We have 5 parts, receptors that receive the stimulus. In our situation and in our story, it is the hand. Sensory neuron, we call it afferent neuron. This neuron sends impulse to the integration center within the central nervous system. Number 3, integration center. Integration center interprets the stimulus and sends message to the motor neuron. Okay? Number 4 is the motor neuron. Number 4 is the motor neuron. We call it efferent neuron. That send the impulses to the muscles of the hand in this situation and withdraw your hand from the fire. This is very, very important. Okay? This action, actually, we call it response. This is number 5. What is the response in our story? It is withdrawal of the hand away from the stove. Again, the reflex arc or the reflex is formed of 5 components. 5 components. Receptor, present in the skin of the head. Afferent neuron, send the impulse to the CNS. Integration center, present within the CNS. Efferent nerve, that send impulse to the muscle. And finally, the muscle that produce the response. And in our situation, the response is withdrawal of the hand. I think it is clear now. Okay. Look at this diagram. We have here the receptor present in the skin of the hand that touch the stimulus. So receptor send impulse through the afferent neuron to the integration center, and from integration center, the impulse reach to the motor neuron, and the motor neuron send impulse to the responding muscle here, the biceps muscle. The response here, or the response of the muscle, is withdrawal of the hand away from the stimulus. This is the reflex and definition and reflex component. Finally, we will move to the structure of the brain. Structure of the brain, we have the final activity here, activity number 7, describe the function of the following parts of the brain: cerebral hemisphere, cerebellum, and brain stem. I have here a nice table to summarize what we need to know. Cerebral hemisphere, large part of the brain, formed of right and left. The function of the cerebral hemisphere, it carries out the higher processes as memory, learning, voluntary body movement. Cerebellum, little brain. The function of the little brain is body balance and equilibrium. Brain stem is the third component here, connects above the 2 structures to the spinal cord. Brain stem connects the cerebral hemisphere, cerebellum, to the spinal cord. Brain stem control breathing and heart function as we have got in the cardiovascular system. Do you remember the cardiovascular system? You can return and study it. I will just remind you that the cardiovascular system activity regulated through center within the brain stem, and the respiratory function, breathing, inhalation, and exhalation, regulated through activity of the center present in the brain stem. This is the function number one. Number two, brain stem gives 12 pairs of cranial nerves that descend and supply the body. Those are the two functions of the brain stem. Very, very important. Okay. Look at this diagram. We have here the cerebral hemisphere. And this diagram is essential also for the practical part. This is the cerebral hemisphere, and this is the cerebellum, and this is the brain stem. If you follow the brain stem downward, you will find the spinal cord. Again, the second diagram here. You will find the cerebral hemisphere or cerebrum, cerebellum, brain stem, and if you follow the brain stem downward, you will find the spinal cord. These are the components of the central nervous system. Central nervous system is formed of brain and spinal cord, and the brain is further divided into cerebellum, cerebrum, and brain stem. All functions of those parts are explained in the previous table. We have here the 3 questions as assignment questions. Please answer those questions and upload them immediately. Let's move to some questions to test you. I give you a good strategy during our MCQ. Please press pause in front of the question and try to answer by yourself. And then replay the video and know if you are correct or wrong. Okay, let's start. The system that connects spinal cord and brain to the rest of the body is, read those carefully and try to answer. Yes, press pause and try to answer. Yes, exactly. Peripheral nervous system, number C. The answer is number C. Please follow this strategy in all the following questions. Question number 2, the system that regulates the visceral activity is, yes, number C, autonomic nervous system. Autonomic nervous system. Yes, this system regulates the visceral activity. The structures that transmit, here we have the third question. The structures that transmit the nerve impulses to the cell body. Yes. Read carefully the 5 alternatives and try to pick up the correct answer. Exactly, it is number C. It is number C, dendrites. Okay. The function of fatty sheaths around the axon of the nerve cells is, yes, read carefully. Exactly, enhance the axon conduction. Enhance the axon conduction. Yes, this is the correct answer. In reflex arm, which of the following is the correct order of the impulse? Yes. Read carefully and try to answer. Number E must, no, sorry, I'm sorry. Number B, receptor, sensory neuron, integration center, motor neuron, and muscle. So the answer, number B. Yes, just to trends. Yes, this is the correct answer. Next. The structure of the central nervous system is responsible for regulation of blood pressure and breathing rate is structure of the central nervous system responsible for respiratory and cardiovascular regulation is yes, exactly, number C. Many answers here today is number C. Structure of the brain responsible for regulation of balance and equilibrium. Yes, exactly. Cerebellum, number B. Number B. Thank you for all of you. I wish to you all the best. Assalamu alaikum.